Hi guys, I'm just going to read the prologue and maybe the first chapter of my book Mildly Interested. So this is it here. I'll link it later on, but yeah, let's go. Okay, page 1, prologue, Mildly Interested. There are many people in the world, and it is said that the countries that hold these people are separated by more than just water or impassable mountain ranges or sweeping deserts. They say that the cultures that define these groups of isolated peoples are so at odds that the term man, although used to express the sexual type of human being in contrast to the female, but in this case defines the human being as a group, these men that apparently belong to the same species are in fact isolated in their ways, their religions and cultures that they cannot possibly see eye to eye. Is it true that one person who sees God in his or her country doesn't see the same God as another from a completely different country? And if not, does it matter? Don't all gods have the same seemingly good intentions for the world? Does the way that a person wears a jacket, laces up his shoes, fashions a skirt to her waist, or carry a bag of flour define the very core, the intrinsic value they have, or the accumulated worth of their tribe or suburb? A woman gets up in the morning and feels the sun on her eyelids before she has the chance to open them, and she knows that soon she will be hungry and have many things to do during the day. She might wash, she might carry a boulder, stitch, or she may run a company that cares for 10,000 other people. Eventually, this woman, after doing that for many years, carries the weight of too many and decides to change her life, go live in another place, change her top, and read a book. So where does this woman come from? What colour is her skin? And does she have a god or a defining religion? I wonder about our ways. I wonder about the things that we as a society feel about other societies, about other species, about other planets and their societies. I do think as far as we have come, or at least as far as we think we have come in however many thousands of years, is really not very far at all. Sometimes I don't even like us, do you? As beautiful as the earth is, it has a different name by any other, and the name that describes it isn't what defines it or shapes its destiny. More can be said about differences and contrasts and other ways of things, but when it boils down, everyone wants the same thing. Everyone has the same possibilities, and everyone can be limited by the same handicaps. This little story isn't meant to define anybody or label a particular group. It's just a story about some people who do things, run into other people, and then things change because they have been changed. The circumstances of their times have dictated a new path and a beginning, just as there was an end and will be another beginning. All things are great, all people are good and bad. Religion is how one acts in relation to his or her God. I know that the universe is vast, people's opinions are vast, and the world seems to be solid, but that is all I really know. What I care about are the freedoms that we have because we are different. We are interesting to the degree that we are different, and we are of value to the extent that we recognise others and their value. Mostly though, I like chocolate, can't look at spiders, and feel that there is never anything to watch on television. Okay, so that's the prologue. I'll read the first chapter. So this is a slightly different format that I was experimenting with this book, and the chapters are short, and I've started off, if you read the book you'll see, with chapter -4. I'm not going to explain, you'll understand once you read it, but anyway, let's go. Chapter -4. The sound of a school ground comforting. A neighbourhood as busy as it seems with the hustle and bustle of everyday life can never drown out the sounds of children that emanate from black asphalt at recess time on a normal school day. It's like a deluge of water cascading over a cliff. Each droplet carries its own weight, minds its own business, hurtling toward the future. But it's when they all come together that the teeming sounds of rushing water, sprays of mist, and the wild rush of it all that someone notices. As the bell sounded, long awaited by many, although a surprise to the studious, the children wrenched on their smiles, and for the first time in hours moved with enthusiasm away from their wooden desks that gave them a place in society, towards the door, the hallway, and finally the playground, where they took other places that they weren't given, but places they took for themselves. The playground, with its infinite possibilities, was barely a black patch, marked out by some white lines and defined by rows of trees and some benches. To an alien it would be as useful as tits on a bull. The warmth and embrace of the black patch was nothing short of miraculous in any number of ways for the average kid, especially in the early years of school. The boy, a little shorter than most of his year, tried to hold his own as the tide of kids carried him through the red double doors onto the playground. Playground was apt because that's what most kids did. They played. As a whole, they played. As individuals, they played handball, hopscotch, traded secrets, talked in a semicircle, or ran around like monkeys in a Thai temple picking at strangers' hair. His temple was not as worry-free as most of the other children. It was sort of forced. In a way, the smile told of relief, but at the same time showed fear and tension. He carried his backpack over his right shoulder, looked out into the black patch, and tried to decide where he would sit out the recess. To one side, a group had already gathered. They laughed, discussed new apps, and picked on one another like most kids did. Further along, in the middle of the playground, there were others who had begun a game of handball, slipping into chalk-defined boxes, waiting for victory so they could move forward higher in competition with anybody who dared challenge. Other groups of girls, nerds, geeks, and the good-looking found their own space. Every day was a challenge to define his spot, to know where to stand. Sometimes he'd play handball, but he wasn't very good. Sometimes he'd sit on a bench and smile at anybody who went past, and other times he'd just focus on what he had to eat for morning tea. Mostly, though, he sat by himself and waited out the time until the bell rang and he'd be flung back into another classroom without a purpose. Sorry, with a purpose. At home, things weren't great for him. His father's sick. His mother had left them so long ago they could barely remember what she looked like. Or smell, or her smell. Sometimes when a female teacher wearing a certain type of perfume came too close, memories would flood back, blurred visions and sounds, feelings of something important and warm about his mother, but that was all. His father did his best to help him cope with school, life in general, without a mother and the bare necessities of life. He worked sometimes when he wasn't too sick, and at other times he could count on his sister to lend a hand. But that was before she left for another country, marred by an emotional fog. She could only focus on the beam, like a lighthouse warning ships. She was gone. They weren't always hard up for money. There was once a time that things weren't too bad. He took each day as it came and decided that with or without a wife, he'd raise his son in the best way he could, and so worked out a routine in which he could go to work after taking the little tyke to school, and then be at home when school ended at 3:30 p.m. The sickness came as unexpected as his wife leaving, but had been spreading for years without any noticeable symptoms. Things changed. Sometimes he couldn't care for his son and had to pay someone to carry out basic chores. Money became tight. He lost his job because he had to have too many days off, and eventually a new routine of debilitating sickness, punctuated spouts of work, and worrying about his son became the norm. It wasn't just the material things that were lacking. The boy knew that. Sometimes he'd be so debilitated with illness that he couldn't even explain to his son what was happening, who was going to make him lunch, or if he'd be home when he got home. Sadness was a part of life. Normality was some form of illusion that he couldn't ever grasp, and he withdrew into himself more and more. Okay, chapter -3. I think I better stop there. It's getting a bit long. Thanks for listening, guys, and just let me know what you think, or if you want me to continue on. Thanks a lot. Bye.